Alright, so here it is, and you have to understand, I personally, by principle, normally do not take pricing into account when it comes to my overall ratings. That is, A, you are absolutely the best judge of what is of worth than I am, and B, pricing changes all the time, literally all the time. So to say, you know, this is such and such because it's priced as thus, will easily by the next day be completely moot because the vendor decided to change the pricing either higher or lower. It just is one of those things. Now, as for pricing though, I will comment on this. I have personally evaluated and video reviewed well, at least a dozen of these very similar, I would dare say identical RGB party lights. We're talking about the ones with a dome on top and what I call the saucer down on the bottom. And they've all actually had just slight differences between brandings. They're not actually exactly identical, and that's why I treat these as individuals. Now, as you can see, there is currently a less than happy review on this product page as I shoot this, and the two technical issues they mention, I haven't experienced in the least. So, I can only assume, and it does happen, perhaps got a bum unit. That's all I can assume, but I've had no issue either with it cutting out or with audio response. None whatsoever. And back to the pricing aspect, I have gone through quite a few of these, and this is undoubtedly the brightest of them all. It really is extremely bright, even compared to ones that are, well, on the surface look identical. It is very bright and vibrant. I mean, I actually have two house lights on each side of me on, and it doesn't wash out the colors whatsoever. It's extremely bright, and that very well may be the whole pricing consideration for you. It's, yeah. Now, as for sound activation, now this might only become readily apparent to someone who has gone through quite a few of these as I have, and when I say the sound activation seems pretty robust, I'll go, right now it's in its default pattern, as you can see, and when I actually play some music, you'll see how it changes the behavior. Let's go ahead and hit the play button there. Now I'm going to stop right there and I'll resume my demo in a second, but what I want to point out here is quite often with these, dome on top, party saucer on the bottom. Now the dome itself doesn't really change per se to the music. None of them do. That's just not part of the programming. None of them actually do. It just kind of randomly flashes, and it might be some behavior there. It's really hard to tell with the dome. Where the main sound activation comes from is on the saucer, and that is once again with all of the models regardless of branding, but not every model reacts the same. Quite often with the bottom saucer, you'll get a little bit of shaking that you just saw when I started the music, where the light kind of goes back and forth, but it's not very strong, meaning that it just like maybe a few degrees changes, and that's about it. And it's like, that's what I call not very robust. It's kind of disappointing. This one, which you'll see again, and you want to focus on this for sound activation, it really does move. It moves. It moves. And that's what I mean, that this does actually have pretty good sound response. Now, you do need to have this either nearby your sound source, or of course your sound source is really crunkin' loud. That's just, once again, the nature of these little party lights regardless of branding. So let's go ahead and resume here. Oh, quick ad, that last one, that little rainbow thing, that particular mode is not one I've seen before on even identical builds. And that's actually a favorite of mine, the one that I just had going before I hit the pause. That is actually not a mode that I've seen before, and I think that's really well done. Alright, once again, back to the music. yeah, that little rainbow lighting's actually quite a favorite of mine. Alright, so there you have it. And the actual power cord that comes with this is actually fairly long and fairly tight in here. There you go. And when I say fairly long, you have to understand none of the cords on these seem to be that long to begin with, but they tend to only be maybe 1.5 foot long. And as you can see, this is actually more along the lines of probably about almost 3 feet. So it's a little bit longer than I've normally seen. As for the construction on the bottom, there is a little inset there to snake the cord in to put it in flush. And there are typical wall mount holes there, even though I have to say, as you can see, they're reversed. That's like, huh? So that's, I mean, normally they're facing, orientated the same way, but they're actually reversed on that. So you may want to take that in mind. That is a bit odd. However, as the light in itself, it works perfectly. You can see it for yourself, though. You can judge for yourself. The only thing, once again, to add is, comparatively speaking, at least in terms of brightness, this is the brightest. It is bright, very vivid. So there you have it. You guys have yourself a great one.